When I was in 1st or 2nd grade, my teacher told the class that we would be celebrating Grandparents' Day. We would be putting on an event for the grandparents. So we spent what felt like months, but was probably just a week, preparing for Grandparents' Day. The course of this week was a disastrous shit show for me. The first thing we did for Grandparents' Day was our teacher had us pick out some, like, basically coloring pages on this very special paper. It was like a thick cardstock, and then we were using this special paint that looked, it was like kind of like watercolors, so you could see through the paint, but it was like a glaze. It kind of looked like it was made of glass, like stained glass. We were all going up in turn to the front of the class to pick out what pictures we wanted to give to our grandparents. We would tell her how many grandparents we had because we were going to give one picture to each grandparent. So some people, the unlucky ones, had like 1 or 2 grandparents. The lucky people had like 4 grandparents. At this point, I only had 3 grandparents. My grandmother on my mom's side died when I was not even 1. So I went up to the front of the class fully intending to ask my teacher for 3 pictures to color in. And so I get to the front of the class and my teacher's like, how's your grandmother on your mom's side doing? I like went to school with her. And I was like, oh shit, like I don't want to tell my teacher that her friend from school is dead and has been dead for like several years. I was like, oh, you know, she's good. And she was like, okay, so like how many pictures do you need to color in? And I was like, I guess 4. And I was like, I hope that no one notices. But that was only the first problem I had with this Grandparents' Day, because the next thing we had to do was we would get these worksheets. There was like a box where you were just supposed to draw your favorite memory with your grandparents, and then there was a little space underneath it where you would write down what was going on in the picture. My grandparents were very disengaged grandparents. The one grandparent I did have who would have been engaged with us grandchildren was dead. I was sitting there and I was like really coming up blank. I was like, I don't think I've ever really done anything with my grandparents. What I decided to do instead of drawing what I actually did with my grandparents was I looked at the paper of the kid next to me and I copied exactly what he wrote. He said, my favorite memory with my grandparents is going to the old country buffet. And so word for word, I copied him. Yeah, I guess I must have copied his drawing too, because I had never even been to the old country buffet. Guess my teacher thought that this was kind of weird that 2 kids sitting next to each other had the exact same favorite memory with their grandparents. And so she took me aside and she was like, I just want to make sure that like your favorite memory with your grandparents actually is going to the old country buffet. And I was like, yep, it is. And so on Grandparents' Day, my 3 grandparents came to the elementary school and they were looking up at a painting for my dead grandmother and a favorite memory that was stolen from another child. And I bet they've never felt so loved in their entire lives.